Welcome to Revenge Justice, where every wrong finds its payback. Several years ago, back when I worked for the state's IT program, life moved at a different rhythm. Day after day, highway after highway, I lived in a world most people never notice. See, my team and I, we were the ones behind the cameras, the silent watchers, the ones keeping the system alive, installing, maintaining, repairing the eyes of the highway. It wasn't glamorous. Not even close, but it mattered, and I took pride in it. Long hours under a blazing sun, nights where the cold cut through every layer of clothing, trucks flying by so close the wind felt like it could knock you over. That was the job. That was the world I lived in. And on this day, it started the same as all the others. A routine call, a bucket truck, a coworker I trusted with my life. We pulled up to the site, just off an exit ramp, parked, braced, set our cones, laid out the signs. Safety wasn't optional. It was survival. A line of bright orange cones stretching out behind us like breadcrumbs, a shield between us, and a stream of metal and glass rushing past at 70, sometimes 80 miles an hour. For 30 minutes, nothing. Business as usual. He worked the tools, I double-checked the feed, no words needed, just habit. Just rhythm, and then it was time to wrap up. He strapped the gear to the truck. I turned to collect the cones. One by one, I picked them up, walking slowly, letting the traffic pass, letting the routine carry me, until I reached the very last one. I bent down, hand on plastic, and that's when I heard it, the sound of a car taking the bend. At first, I didn't look up, just another vehicle, just another driver. But then, something in me shifted. The hum of the engine, lower, meaner, the shine of paint, black, polished, almost predatory. And when I finally raised my head, I saw it. A black Mercedes. Sleek, expensive. The kind of car that doesn't just move down the road. It announces itself. And inside, the driver. At first, nothing unusual. Just another face behind the wheel. But then, he slowed. Not much. Just enough. Just enough for me to notice. And then, the grin. That grin. Wide, smug, cruel. A grin that said, "Watch this." And before I could even process it, he swerved, hard, right at me. In that instant, time collapsed. The cone slipped from my hand. My chest tightened. My brain screamed, "Move." But my legs froze. The car came closer, closer, the front bumper a black blur aiming straight for me. And then, at the very last second, he pulled away, tires jerking back into the lane, and him laughing. I saw his shoulders shaking. I saw the smug tilt of his head. He was laughing his ass off. At me. At my fear. At how close he'd come. And in that moment, something inside me snapped. The world went red. My pulse was hammering, so loud it drowned out the noise of the highway. I just stood there, frozen, the last cone still lying at my feet. And all I could think was, he could have killed me. Not an accident, not a mistake, on purpose, for fun. He chose to aim 2 tons of steel at me, and then laugh about it. I watched the Mercedes glide past, smooth and arrogant, disappearing down the exit ramp like nothing happened. But my hands, they were shaking. Not with fear anymore, with rage. I felt the blood rushing in my ears, hot, heavy, consuming. I turned, walked fast back toward the bucket truck. My coworker saw me coming. He was halfway through strapping the last of the gear down, but when he saw my face, he stopped. "Hey, what happened?" he asked. I didn't answer at first, just climbed up into the bucket, pulled myself higher, so I could see over the trees, see where that exit led. And there he was, the black Mercedes, pulling off into a nearby parking lot, super target. Of course, he parked, and even from a distance I could see what kind of man he was, the kind who didn't just take one space. Oh no. He spread himself out across 4, like the world belonged to him, like everyone else should just make room. I memorized the spot. burned it into my brain. By the time I climbed back down, my coworker was watching me carefully. "You look pissed," he said. I told him what happened. The grin, the swerve, the laugh. His face darkened. He knew me well enough to understand what that meant. "Don't do anything that'll get us fired," he warned. I looked him in the eye and let the corner of my mouth twitch into the faintest smile. "It'll be perfectly legal," I said, and I meant it. We finished packing up the truck, but my mind wasn't on the gear anymore. It was locked on that Mercedes, on that smug little grin. Some men, they walk through life thinking they're untouchable, that their money, their car, their smirk is armor. But I've always believed something different. Everyone, and eventually, answers for the way they treat people. Some call it karma. Some call it justice. Me? I call it opportunity. I stood there in the parking lot, hands on my hips, just watching his shiny black Mercedes gleaming under the afternoon sun. 4 carts, 4 heavy-duty zip ties, 1 for each door. And the beauty of it? Not a single scratch, not a single mark, perfectly legal, perfectly harmless. And yet, absolutely infuriating. See, that's the thing about revenge. It doesn't have to be violent. It doesn't even have to be destructive. It just has to be poetic. I remember my coworker shaking his head. "You're crazy, man, completely crazy." But he was grinning too, because deep down, he knew this was justice. We finished strapping down the truck, and as we were about to leave, I took one last look at that Mercedes. Picture this, a luxury car, parked across 4 spots, already screaming arrogance, now trapped by 4 shopping carts, locked in place, like some kind of poetic cage. I could almost see it. The driver, walking back to his car, keys in hand, that same smug grin plastered on his face, maybe sipping on his overpriced latte, maybe humming to himself, thinking he'd just owned some highway worker. And then he sees it. First, confusion. His brow furrows. Why are there carts around his car? Then realization. Wait, these aren't just around the car. They're attached. He tugs one, doesn't move, tries another. No luck. He kneels down, sees the thick black zip tie, unbreakable, tight, professional grade. Now the grin fades. Now the panic sets in. Because how does he explain this? How does he get into his car, in broad daylight, with shoppers walking by, without looking like a complete fool? I imagine him pulling at the carts, yanking, twisting, sweat forming on his forehead, people slowing down, staring, whispering, and then the humiliation. Because eventually, he'd have to do it, walk, all the way inside that super target, head down, tail between his legs, and find someone, anyone with a pair of cutters. And you know the employees. They'd be laughing. You just know they would. The arrogant guy with the luxury car, the one who thought the rules didn't apply to him, is now begging for help to free his ride from shopping carts. And that's the thing. I didn't have to see it happen. I didn't have to stick around for the show. The revenge was already complete because I knew. I knew the moment he laid eyes on those carts, that smug little grin would vanish. People ask me sometimes, why didn't you do more? Why not scratch his car? Why not slash his tires? And I tell them, that's not revenge. That's just destruction. That's anger with no purpose. But this was justice. It fit the crime perfectly. He tried to intimidate me with his car, tried to make me feel small, so I used the very thing he was so proud of against him. He wanted to show off? Fine. Now everyone in that parking lot got a show. And the best part? It didn't cost me a dime. Just 4 carts, 4 zip ties, and 1 afternoon of patience. I drove away with my coworker, the bucket truck humming along the road. We didn't say much at first, just shared a quiet laugh, because sometimes silence says it all. But in my head, I could still see it. That Mercedes, that driver, that priceless look of humiliation. And even now, years later, whenever I think about it, I can't help but smile. Because in the end, that's what real revenge is. Not rage, not violence, but balance. Poetic balance. He wanted to scare me? Fine, but I gave him something worse. Embarrassment, public humiliation, a memory he'll never live down. And me? I walked away, unbothered, unfired, completely clean, because like I told my coworker that day, it'll be perfectly legal. And it was. Justice served, revenge delivered, and a Mercedes driver put in his place